when those fundamentals are missing and you're going into that advanced technique, you're more likely to get injured. You're more likely to push off wrong. You're more likely not to have great alignment when you're landing. Both of those things rely heavily on really strong fundamentals in dance. And so when dancers are striving to do these like really crazy cool tricks, they all come down to a fundamental knowledge of basic anatomy.
Welcome to another episode of Beyond the Steps, produced by Apollo Performance and Turning Point Dance Creations. I am Melissa McDaniel Grisham, here with my amazing co-host, Bree Zabrowski, with another fantastic episode lined up. We've got Kara Dixon, and we're chatting about healing the body through movement. Kara is the co-founder of Relative Motion, is originally from Virginia Beach, Virginia, where she taught at Denise Wall's Dance Energy. Kara went on to be faculty at Broadway Dance Center and adjunct faculty at Old Dominion University. She has performed for companies such as Cirque du Soleil and Stiletto Entertainment, along with various contracts for companies in New York City, where she was featured in commercials as both a dancer and a teacher. She currently teaches master classes and adjudicates on the competition circuit. She has a BA in dance and is certified in yoga and injury prevention. Kara, welcome back to Beyond the Steps.
Hi, good to see you guys. I'm excited to be here.
Oh, we're excited to have you. This is always a fun time ever. Like we're trade show buddies, so to see you outside of the trade show circuit is always fun. And I know you guys have been doing so much work in the space. We're excited to kind of dive in with you and kind of share the insight that you of the dance industry that you see through relative motion and what you all are experiencing. I know Apollo, we have a very similar situation with the education portion of what we offer the community. So we're excited to have you on. And I'm gonna dive right in because we've got a lot to talk about. So, in your work with relative motion, you've made it your mission to bring a deeper understanding of anatomy to the dance world. Why do you feel like that knowledge is so crucial for dancers and teachers today? Because it has not always been considered crucial.
Yeah. So when my sister Jamie and I founded this company, Relative Motion, what we were seeing prior to that is that there's a huge disconnect between the way we train dancers and dancers actually understanding what their body is designed to do and how their body is designed to move. And so the interesting thing about that is that we want them to train at these high levels and be at that level of being an athlete. And yet, when there is that disconnect, now we're inviting in instability and we're inviting in injury. And so, what we noticed then is like, if we can just get the dancers to understand what we as teachers understand, usually experientially, like as adults, we've experienced way more in our bodies. We have a deeper understanding naturally. So if we can get younger dancers to understand and experience that without injury, then we can get their technique level to a much higher spot, but also quickly, right?
So you emphasize the body as a source of wisdom, which I've heard this before. I wish I could use mine as a source of wisdom, but it's a little creaky every now and then. So, many dancers train for many years without a comprehensive understanding of actual anatomical principles that actually like support their technique. So what are some of the most common misconceptions or gaps in the knowledge that you see, and how does relative motion aim to bridge this divide?
I think the biggest thing is that, like you guys know, anatomy is very complex, right? And I think the biggest misconception is that it has to be that complicated to teach it. Like whenever we're with a younger dancer and we're trying to explain something anatomically, I feel like we can go to a much higher level and a much like deeper concept than they could really understand. And so I think if we can like change that misconception about the complexity into how can we simplify this? And so like a big thing we do at our company is we look at the body as a whole. And we're like, okay, what should this look like when the dancer is doing it? Like a lot of dancers are visual learners, so they try to mimic shapes that they see another more advanced dancer doing, right? Versus really understanding in their body what should be happening. And so the first aspect is like, okay, what should this look like anatomically? What should our body look like in this shape? But then secondary, like what should we be activating to get this to happen and how does that feel? Because, in our experience as teachers, the second a dancer feels it right, they can repeat that. But a lot of times, they're mimicking something, they felt it wrong, and then they've built like this muscular system around the muscle memory of doing it wrong. And so a lot of times as teachers, right, have we ever given dancers corrections and they do it the exact same way again. And you're like, how'd that feel? They're like, it feels great. And you're like, well, it feels great because you did it the same way you always do it. Like sometimes when you fix it, it's going to feel really bad or it's going to feel wrong because it's just different at first. And so just getting dancers to know what they're aiming for physically, what does it look like? And then how can we as teachers nurture them into feeling it? Right. And so with our company specifically, and I know there's other ways to do this, but with our company, we have anatomical apparel. And so we can cue the dancer through color. You should be seeing this blue color. If you're seeing a lot of this color, your goal now is to like get your body to activate in a way that will show that other color. And so they can measure their progress, but they also know what their progress is supposed to look like. And so when they can do it, now instead of like standing on the floor and like putting their feet in first position, and you can force that, right? Because you have the floor as a guide. Now, if we cue something, they can't force it. So if they get to that spot that they're making the progress, we know that they're making it by activating the right muscles. But if you said like, hey, activate your hamstring or activate your hip flexors or activate your psoas or whatever it might be, activate for them could easily be as simple as just gripping it, right? And like as teachers, we know like, okay, if they grip it, they're probably going to close off that space and not get to really access the extension or whatever it is we're cueing. And so like, how does that activation feel in their body? And what kind of questions can we ask them? Is there a way we can get our dancers instead of black and white? Because technique's usually like you're in the right alignment or you're not. So it's a lot of no's in the classroom, but how can we turn that around and lead with curiosity instead of being like, you're in the wrong placement, be like, can you see the blue panel from that placement?
Okay, so I want to stop you. For those people that are not familiar with what product you have, explain really briefly what, because it's leggings, right? But explain the purpose and what you guys are doing. And when you're talking about colors, explain what that means.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have color blocked apparel. And so what we do is every major muscle group in the lower body is a different color. And so when a dancer is thinking about their hamstrings, they could also be thinking about the blue panel, right? Or if they're thinking about their IT band, it could be the mesh panel on the side. And so tactilely, we change the fabric for certain things, but also we change the color so that we can cue dancers like to know their hamstring, but we can also cue them to understand if you can see the blue, then this is what is happening in your body. If you don't see that, you're most likely doing this. And so we can simplify cueing. And I know a lot of teachers are like, I put chalk all over the body and I like put the stickers on and all the stuff. But this is a way to retrain the dancers over and over and over again to know blue is going to be this is going to be this. And so, and it's also a very measurable way for dancers to know that they're training safely and not have to worry about all the things we're seeing in dance constantly, like the overuse injuries that are usually coming because, yeah, the dancers are overusing their muscles, but it's also because they're out of alignment when they're overusing their muscles. And so consistently being out of alignment. And then prior to this, teachers would just be like, okay, do it again, right? Because we're not doing it right yet. Let's do it again. But if we have these cues that make it so clear that the dancer is safe and so clear that the dancer is making this tangible progress, then we actually start to see real change, right?
So, I want to talk about the practical applications of anatomy and dance and movement, right? How can dancers and teachers practically apply anatomical knowledge to improve their technique, increase strength and alignment, and ultimately move more efficiently and safely? Because that's the goal, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the simplest way to get this started is just to know the basics of the anatomy, right? Because it's hard to apply something if we're still kind of questioning what it is. Since the anatomy is complex, find ways to learn those basic anatomical alignments, especially the ones we use in dance all the time. Find ways to learn them that are within your learning like capacity. Are you a visual learner? look at pictures, learn that way, like really dive in. If you like to hear stuff, find podcasts that talk about it. Like find ways that'll like break down what it is you're seeing in your classroom and how that applies to your dancers anatomically. Like how's the body designed in these moments? I always look for patterns. So the first thing I would do as a teacher is like, what corrections are you saying all the time to your dancers? Start to just write them down. Like I'm always saying turnout, right? I'm always saying stretch your feet. I'm always saying use more plie. There's going to be certain things that you say all the time that another studio might not say all the time, or there might be things you're like, man, you go to a competition stage and you're like, we get these corrections all the time, but like, I feel like other studios are doing this really well. Write those things down. Where are the questions? Like, why aren't we able to access this more? Write that down, right? Because it's probably something anatomically tied to that correction that we're saying a certain way over and over, and our dancers aren't hearing it that way. Like we know what we're saying, but our dancers are translating it differently. And is there a way in those moments that we can say that correction differently to our dancers? Because there's a way to get them to have access to it, and maybe they're just not hearing what you think we're saying, you know? Sometimes, and I see this a lot with like, we guest teach at a lot of studios, and we go in and we say stuff we know the studio teachers are saying. But the second we say it, the dancers are like, "Oh." And the teachers are like, "We say this all the time." But it's just like a brand new way of them hearing it, and so they can apply it. So write down the things you're like, "I say this all the time. I feel like our dancers aren't doing it." And then I would look generationally at what you're doing. Like, your seniors are having these struggles. Okay, where does that start? Are your 3-year-olds having these struggles? And make notes there because it might be that the only reason why you're having these issues consistently is that your littles are watching your bigger dancers. And so these are going to be generational corrections that keep going on and on and on until we break those cycles. So then, like, okay, what are corrections I'm saying all the time? How far back do these corrections go? And how long do I feel like I've been saying these to even dancers that have graduated? And then from there, where and anatomically are they struggling to master this? Because it might be that they just don't understand that part of their body. So if it's like we're getting them to struggle, like stretching the backs of their knees, they might not even understand the knee joint. They might be compressing the knee through like from plie to hyperextension versus expanding that joint through lengthening it. And so now, like instead of a straight knee, we're getting a compressed joint. So just thinking like, okay, anatomically, what am I seeing over and over again? And is there a disconnect with them fully understanding that? Then that's where I would start with it.
I'm gonna go a veer a little bit off, not too much because I know you have a hard stop. But like when we're talking about education and training, we know that the dance industry has a broad spectrum of training in terms of studio owners, directors, teachers. There is no governing body, there's no certification. So a lot of this is what you've learned, what you were taught, the way you were taught, right? And you're regurgitating that and kind of implementing the things that you might have learned along the way and peppering those things in. But the reality is that like there's really there's educators and coaches and directors that are really educated in the body and science and really rooted in this idea of mitigating injury risk management. And then there's those that are on the other end of the spectrum that maybe haven't had that same training, that same language introduced to them, and they're doing the best they can. I think all the intentions are great, right? But there's a clear difference in ability and skill and training within the industry. So do you feel like this program is making it more accessible for maybe that other end of the spectrum that maybe isn't as familiar with anatomy and the terminology, and you guys are serving it up in a way that makes it easier to swallow for everybody?
Right. Yeah, like just getting it digestible. I think that that's one of our number one goals. I think what we see a lot in our teacher trainings is a lot of people have come in that have been physical therapists. So they like come in with a massive knowledge. And then we have other teachers that are like, how much do we need to know before we get started? And they come in not knowing a lot about the anatomy. They know a lot about dance. They know a lot about dance training. They've gotten great results over the years, but they in the back of their mind, they're like, I feel like something's missing in what our dancers are doing. And then when it comes down to anatomy, it feels like a big question mark in a lot of ways. So we've had both groups coming to us for for guidance in our teacher trainings. And what we notice is that we've created our teacher training in a way that starts as if you can come in with any amount of knowledge. We talk up to the physical therapist, and we talk peer to peer with the people that are just coming in, because we're like, it's very easy to look at this and be like, this is really complicated. Like, this is a really hard thing to understand. I don't even know where to start. And we're like, hey, you know what? And this is how your dancers feel too. And so if we can just start with the three colors on our panels, we know black, that's one of our neutral colors. We know purple, blue, and green, right? If you know purple, blue, and green, we are going to simplify everything that you need to cue down to these four colors, right? We're going to get you to understand what you need your dancers to be able to understand. And we're going to make it all feel like English. Because it does feel sometimes like a foreign language.
Yeah, and what I love about this too is that really, even if you have a studio that's not 100% bought in, or they don't have the capacity to, bring this on, or for whatever reason, parents can also, and dancers and movers can also make the decision, hey, I want to do this for my kid, and I can learn. You're packaging it in a way that the parents and the student can learn it on their own if they choose, right? Like, this is something they can pursue on their own to help their dancers. So if you're somewhere where you're like, I feel like I need more resources, for my kid, you can go and get something like this and also gain an understanding, even if the studio isn't bought in.
Yeah, absolutely. And interestingly enough, we've had teachers go through our training. They're like, well, we're not decision makers at the studio, but they start implementing the concepts. And that's another thing. It's like there's a certain way in our teacher training, and we just really like focus in on this, that dancers get overwhelmed with not just the anatomy, but how many corrections they're receiving in a single class. And so the way that we teach the teachers is like, how much can your dancers really take in within an hour and a half? And if we're asking them to change something very major anatomically, like straightening the back of the knees, and they haven't done that for the last 10 years of training, they're not going to master it in this class with all these other corrections coming at them too. So how can we like get them a single mental focus for this class? Because if we can get your dancers only thinking for this block of time about one thing, and the movement patterns repeat themselves, and the cues repeat themselves, and the corrections repeat themselves, then you have a really like good chance of them making significant improvement in a very short period of time, because of the repetition, because of the consistency, because of their singular focus. And it's funny, you guys will probably see this a lot, but like a lot of teachers will come up to us as we're about to work with their dancers, and they'll be like, just as a heads up, like, our dancers have a lot of issues focusing. You probably won't get them to stand still very long. Like, it's very hard to get kids these days to like stand still and focus. But when a dancer pinpoints and like hones in on like one thing, and they become almost hyper focused on it, and you'll see this sometimes with like children that struggle with ADHD. It's like their mind can go all over, but when they have a hyper focus, it's almost like you can see that pinpointed laser focus. And so it's really good for that type of learning too, where they have this like hyper focus on, let's use the blue panel as an example. And we're like, I want you to see more of the blue panel. They'll stare at their leg, and they'll just like look and try and try. And they'll stand there for such a long period of time getting it to happen. The amount of like the wiggling and all the stuff that kind of starts to happen at the bar kind of washes out, because they're so ingrained in studying themselves. And again, with the leading through curiosity, they're asking themselves these questions the whole time. Okay, I'm feeling it here. If I'm not feeling it here, why am I not feeling it here? Like, did I feel it here until my leg got to a certain point and then I lost it? And so the whole time they're having this conversation with themselves, and it's not like right or wrong, it's just like a curiosity driven movement. And so the dancers will stay in those moments a lot longer, which is really cool to see. But yeah, when teachers, even without the apparel, teach like that, where they're like, okay, we're going to get our dancers to laser focus on a concept versus like straighten the back of your legs, close your rib cage, shoulders down, round the bed. Like, each of those corrections could take weeks to fix, and we're giving them all within, like, a couple of minutes.
But what is so interesting is that movers in general, anytime you're dealing with, artistic athletes, they tend to be very visual, right? Because that's how we're receiving information most of the time. And so giving them this tactile visual tool that allows them to see what you need them to do is really, really cool. I think that's just such a smart way to approach it and something that's so different than anything else being done in the industry. So I'm really excited for people to continue discovering this. I think it's fantastic.
I love it. Like, every time I've seen it, like, "Oh my gosh, I have to start putting this into the studio. I have to start getting my kids into this." So, I'm super excited to start working with you, with some of my kids for sure. So, let's talk about injury prevention a little bit, or injury mitigation a little bit. How can a strong foundation in dance anatomy and biomechanics contribute to effective injury mitigation strategies and a longer, healthier dance career?
Answers to high technique levels quickly, which I think sometimes we overlook the injury aspect because we want that technique to happen fast and we don't know. Often they feel like two separate issues, like high technique, injury, you know? Yeah, like, oh, we're just gonna hold back on all our training. The dancers won't be in the studio as much, like all this stuff. And so I like always like to challenge that they're the same, they're not but opposite side of the same coin, where it's like both of those things rely heavily on really strong fundamentals in dance. And so when dancers are striving to do these like really crazy cool tricks, they all come down to a fundamental knowledge of basic anatomy. And so I see like sometimes dancers are doing these tricks and they're getting this feedback from judges or whatever it happens to be. And the basic feedback, if you boil it down, is going to be, their Batma alignment's not right. Like dancers will do like a triple leg hold turn and they'll get these corrections. It's like, well, the initial tendu into that dégagé was already off. So now you've hiked the hip up. But it's not about the major technique. It's about how did you even get started? Like you probably brushed into that dégagé with the hip lifted. It was probably at 45 when you were off and not like 180. And like things like, aerials. It's like if you haven't dug into that plie and really stretched through those feet to push off, it's not even about completely going into an inversion and landing. A lot of this is gonna come from the fundamentals of even, like, prepping for that movement, you know? And that's all about the injury reduction too. It's like, when those fundamentals are missing and you're going into that advanced technique, you're more likely to get injured. You're more likely to push off wrong. You're more likely not to have great alignment when you're landing. And so I feel like for both of the sides of that coin, if we slow down, and I know it feels like if we slow down, we don't have time in the studio to slow down. But I want to challenge people to think like if you go back into the studio and do these very basic things twice as often, those advanced things are going to come twice as fast. We're missing out on the advanced stuff because we're missing out on the fundamentals that give it the foundation of doing great, you know? And I think like I was using this analogy with a friend the other day where like if I built my home on sand, every day I would wake up and I would wonder, is my house gonna be here? Are my kids gonna be safe overnight? Is all of our stuff gonna like, be gone tomorrow? Like, and I think that the same thing is happening with advanced technique. We're building advanced technique on sand. And so we are wondering, are our dancers going to land this safely? Are our dancers going to have these strong, like durable bodies in 10 years? And we have to wonder that every day if the foundation of what we are laying isn't concrete, right? If it's not like really firm. So I think about that often with both sides, you know?
And I do want to weigh in on that because I think foundation is not one thing. It's not just technique. It's using tools like relative motion, Apollo socks, resting, proper recovery, ice, drinking enough water, the way you fuel your body with food. It all kind of plays a role in the foundation that we're talking about. And keep yeah, yeah, the way you talk to yourself, the mental game of it, right? And it's not just one thing, and I think sometimes I always like to tell people, like, "Look, Casey and I could not stand up here passionately and talk about socks for hours if we did not know for a fact it was impactful and that it was going to be life changing for you. But this is not the only thing you need in your tool belt, right? You need to have a lot of different things for that holistic 360-degree, injury risk management kind of view of your career, whether you're a student or a professional, it doesn't matter. So it's really important for people to hear that. I think that, like, we are acknowledging these are important tools to have, but they're not, singularly, it's not just going to change the game for you, right? You need to use multiple things.
Yeah, like, there's no magic ingredient, right? It's a bunch of consistency over time with basics, right? Like, yeah, like you said, using tools that work, like, and I love how you said, like, it's hard to get up and, like, passionately talk about socks over and over again, or, like, or like leggings over and over again, but the thing is, you've seen results with Apollo, and Jamie and I were actually saying this recently. We were like, because somebody had put on our leggings and they were like, "Oh my goodness, they feel so good." They were like, "I had no idea they would." It was like a teacher too, and they were like, "I wish I could wear these like all the time. They feel so good. I had no idea." And Jamie and I actually said, we were like, it reminds us of the first time we put on Apollos, because it's not just a song. Like, you put it on and you're like, "I wish I had known." But you have to put it on the first time to even know. Like, I feel like easily someone could be like, "Oh, it's a sock and it's injury prevention." It's like, put it on and you'll see instantly that there's a difference to an Impala versus any other thing that you're gonna wrap your foot in. I mean, it's mind-blowing the difference.
You name it. Yeah, exactly. And that's it. It is very similar in that the same thing with what you all are doing. And I think that's what's important for the dance industry especially to understand, is this idea of evolution. We evolve in our art. We evolve in the way that we approach art all the time, but we really need to evolve the thought process to adopt some of these things that research has introduced to us, that companies are bringing into the fold, because there is a certain amount of education and research that we have now that we didn't have 5, 10, 20 years ago, that is contributing to more success for the athletes that we're seeing. So I encourage everybody to check it out. And that really takes us to homework. Because you've been with us before, we like to give homework on the show for everybody out there watching, some way that they can make progress between now and next week's episode. So for dancers and teachers who are eager to deepen their understanding of dance anatomy and all the practical applications, what is one key concept or resource from relative motion that they should explore to get started on their journey?
Yeah. Well, I would say the first thing to do is just download the Relative Motion Technique app. It's a free app, but it gives you a lot of free resources. Like, even on the app, there's free challenges you can do, there's free exercises you can take advantage of. And it just introduces you to like what our company does and how it's different in its training. There's a lot of stuff like you can pop into on IG and stuff. It's hard to know, like, okay, how does this work for our dancers? And is there like a like, you can do a one-off exercise, but what's the strategy behind that? And so going on the app, you'll see a lot of free resources. We also have like a relative motion basic training, which is just like all of our classes. It's just a couple exercises popped out of all of our classes. It's totally free also. And then we have relative motion. It's a great way to introduce yourself to what we're doing, right? And then it's easy to access on devices, so that's great. And then we have Relative Motion Plus, which is all of our training classes, but it's great for like a dancer that wants to try it, or a teacher that's not certified that wants to try it. And then we have Relative Motion Pro, and that's specifically for teachers that want to become certified teachers. All of our exercises also come with like teacher note exercises for like modifications, injury prevention, like different things that we pop in that are specifically for teachers. And you also get access to additional teacher specific resources. So check any of those things out, but start with the free ones and just see what it's all about. And then you can always upgrade into other training concepts.
I love that you're offering that. That's fantastic.
Yeah, that's absolutely fantastic. I can't wait to take advantage of some of these resources for sure. So thank you for that homework. Make sure you do all of those things. We also have our weekly homework that we give every single time, and it's to take the steps initiative. It was the impetus for Beyond the Steps as a podcast, and all of the modules that are available there are totally free. Free, free, free. Y'all are getting a whole bunch of free stuff today. A lot of free stuff today. So those are totally free, and make sure that you click it and take advantage of that whenever you can. Let your teachers, let your students, let your parents, anybody take advantage of those free modules, because when you know better, you do better. Sarah, how in the world can people get in touch with you? How can I get in touch with you? How can I get you to my studio? How can I get this product on my students? Give us all of the details.
First of all, Melissa, I'm on my way right now, so I'll see you in a couple of hours. You can find us on Instagram at Relative Motion Dance, or email. Feel free to email us at info@relativemotiondance.com, or you can go to our website, relativemotiondance.com, and you can find us any of those ways. So come, I'd love to connect with anybody who's around, and yeah, let's dance.
I'm Bree Zabrowski, and this is Melissa McDaniel Grisham. Thank you to Kara Dixon again from the Relative Motion Experience for the fantastic convo and insight. We need to do this more. Make sure you check out what they're doing. Give them a follow. Again, relativemotiondance.com. And thank you to all of you out there for watching the episode today. You can find this episode and all of our Beyond the Steps episodes on YouTube and Facebook at Apollo Performance and TP Dance Creations. So be sure to subscribe, like, comment, share, all the things. Next week, we're going to be back with our good friend Casey Day from the Two Dance Moms podcast with another fantastic episode to keep dance parents thriving in a competitive dance world. Until next time.